Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving headfirst into a question that came straight from a conversation on the 555 podcast. And we're going to tackle it with nothing but the straight facts. This is all about the health realities of, well, eating ass.
All right, first up, a very frank question. There's no beating around the bush here. We're just going to get straight to the point.
So here it is, the big question for our entire explainer. It's direct, yeah, but you know what? It's a genuine health question that a lot of people are curious about. So beyond all the jokes and memes, what's the actual answer? Okay, before we dive any deeper, let's just get the official term out of the way. The clinical name for this is anilingus. Knowing the medical term kind of helps us ground this conversation in facts and, move past any of the awkwardness. And that brings us right to the heart of the matter, understanding the health risks. This part isn't about what you think or what I think. It's all about what the science says happens when these two very different parts of the body come into contact. So the number one concern, the main thing we need to talk about, is the potential presence of fecal matter. And here's the key thing. Even if an area looks totally, spotlessly clean, we are dealing with microscopic particles and bacteria that you just can't see with the naked eye. Now, these risks break down into a few key categories. First, you've got bacterial infections like E. coli, which can cause some nasty gastroenteritis. We're talking diarrhea and vomiting. Then there are parasites like Giardia, which can lead to really prolonged watery diarrhea. And of course, there are viruses like hepatitis A and STIs like herpes, which can absolutely be transmitted to the mouth or throat. Okay, I know that was the kind of scary part, but listen, the good news is there are really practical, very effective ways to significantly reduce these risks. So let's stop talking about the problems and start talking about the solutions. Step one, and this is probably the single most effective thing you can do, is use a physical barrier, a dental dam. It's just a thin sheet of latex, you place it over the area and it prevents direct contact. Simple as that. It literally stops the transfer of all those organisms we just talked about. It's a simple step, but it's incredibly effective. Next up, step two is hygiene. Now, this might seem super obvious, but you'd be surprised how important it is. A thorough wash with good old soap and water right before the activity can dramatically reduce the amount of stuff that could be transmitted. Look, it doesn't get rid of all the risk, but it lowers it by a whole lot. And step three, which is, you could argue, the foundation of any healthy sex life, is open communication. Seriously, if someone isn't feeling well, if they have an upset stomach, or if you see any sores or bumps down there, that's a hard stop. Full stop. Having that open dialogue and getting tested for STIs regularly are just non-negotiable for staying safe. So now let's kind of zoom out and get a little bit of biological context, because understanding the why behind all these risks actually makes those safety steps we just covered make a whole lot more sense. This brings us to a really key concept called the fecal-oral route. I know, the name sounds pretty intense, right? But it's a totally standard medical term. It's actually the exact same way a stomach bug spreads. Somebody doesn't wash their hands after using the restroom, and then they touch their mouth. So the way the germs travel isn't unique to sex at all. And this gets into the really fascinating world of the microbiome. See, your gut is packed with trillions of bacteria that are the good guys. They're absolutely essential for digestion and keeping you healthy in your intestines. But the moment you take them out of that environment and introduce them somewhere new, like the mouth, those same good guys can become bad guys and make you sick. All right, so we've covered the science, the risks, and how to stay safe. But remember, this whole topic came from the 555 podcast. And their conversation was about a whole lot more than just biology. So let's get into what the hosts themselves actually think about all this. So just to recap the facts real quick before we dive into the opinions, is it inherently bad for your health? The science says no, if you take the right precautions. The risk is purely biological, but the choice, well, that's completely personal. First up, we've got Rike, and let me tell you, she does not mince words. For her, all the science in the world doesn't matter, because the whole idea is just a complete non-starter. Her stance is firm, it's clear, she thinks it's disgusting, period. Then you have Nikki, who is bringing a completely different energy to the conversation. It's not something she's asking for, but hey, if it happens, she's not going to stop it. However, she has one hilarious and very absolute rule. There will be no kissing afterward. None.
And yeah, this quote right here, it just sums up Nikki's hard and fast rule perfectly. It's blunt, it's hilarious, and it just captures the whole candid vibe of their podcast. A very, very clear boundary has been drawn. And finally, Blaze gives us another perspective. For her, it's a simple and clear personal preference. She's not into anything anal, but, and this is key, she makes it really clear she's not judging anyone else who is. It's just not her cup of tea.
So there you have it. We've laid out the biological risks and we've talked about the very real ways you can manage them. We've heard the strong, personal, and very different opinions from the hosts. From a hard no way to a conditional okay, but in the end, with the right information, the choice is always yours. The big takeaways here are always health, honest communication, and consent. Now that you have the facts, what's your take?